Hello, everyone, and welcome to NiCHE Conversations. This is a space where I talk to our contributors and ask them about to reiterate their ideas, to talk about more of the context behind the post, their personal connections, maybe how it fits into public ideas. That's not what I meant to say. How it fits into current events, also known as public ideas. So we're going to be joined by Apala today. We had a little bit of confusion when we first popped on, so this is our second try, and she should be joining us soon. And we're going to be talking about two environmental humanities courses that she taught in this past year at Emory University, where she is a PhD candidate. And we're going to be talking about how science is interwoven into these kinds of environmental humanities courses. And this was these were courses that were on plants and tropical landscapes and kind of literature and art. Oh, Apala is here, so I'm going to invite her in. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we found each other.
Yes.
We had a little bit of confusion, so we're starting a little
Yes.
late, but that's okay. We'll just jump right in. This is NiCHE Conversations, and I'm Jessica DeWitt, one of the editors here at the network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by Apala Bhowmick. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name's Apala. I'm a PhD student at the Department of English at Emory University, and I work on the environment and post-colonial literature.
Yes, and this, I think, is your second piece for us, because you also wrote for our COVID series back in the day, a couple of years ago.
That was actually, 10 years ago. So we've known each other for a while.
Yes.
Yes.
We've been internet friends for a while.
Yes, exactly.
And as I was talking about in the earlier chat, because I was waiting for you, so I was kind of rambling, but I think I saw you post on Facebook one of your course posters, and I was like, ooh, that looks so cool. So I was like, you want to do a course reflection when this is over?
Yes.
And and then that's what happened. So in July, we published The Tropics Are Topical, History of Science, Literary Dialogue, and Reading the Ecological in a Rhetoric Classroom. And this ended up being a really popular post amongst our readers. And that's what we're going to be chatting about today. And I thought that we would start off with just a brief description of what these courses were that you taught.
Yes. So first off, thank you for having me on Instagram Live, but also giving me a chance to write my course reflections for NiCHE. It was my first year of teaching, so I think the poster designs were taken well, and my students loved both courses. So for the first course that I taught in the fall, we focused mainly on which was called The Tropics Are Topical, Botany, Empire, and Colonialism. We focused on the process of writing, because these were writing courses in my university, and what the different kinds of genres of ecological writing are. Some of them kind of really took to the readings that were more kind of creative, like they liked the novel that we read, they liked the poetry. Some of them kind of liked the history of science, the nonfiction, the criticism aspect more. But all in all, the course in the fall kind of focused more on the genre question. The course in the spring focused more on the idea of being able to kind of write smaller, low-stakes assignments and cobble them together into a bigger assignment. And they had three big major assignments, and one of them had a lot of scaffolding towards like journal entries on botanical species that they've observed on campus, and kind of to to learn how to organize smaller pieces of writing into bigger, more substantial assignments. Yeah, those
Yeah.
were, yeah.
Cool. And so in the post, you kind of outline some of the sources as well as the assignments that you gave your students. So I thought maybe I'd ask you, just out of curiosity, like, what was your favorite assignment, or like what was the assignment that went really well in these courses?
That's a really fun question. I think I think I kind of liked, I did like, I liked the creative nonfiction assignment because it gave me an insight into how my students were and how they were perceiving the ecology on campus around them, or
Mm-hmm.
how they've kind of tied up the readings on botany and imperialism with the observations that they've, kind of garnered throughout their life. But I think my students really loved one major assignment called the ekphrastic essay, where they had to choose a a picture, a painting, it could be a photograph as well, and they had to sort of write on it and respond to it. And we also did a bunch of readings on ekphrasis
Yeah.
so that they knew what the genre was. And so they could bring a little bit of their own autonomy and agency to the process, because they had to choose the graphics, and then they had to show me that they had done the reading. So they had to cite some of the references that were on the syllabus, and then they could kind of also be creative if they wanted to, alongside
Mm-hmm.
giving me that bit of reading and their own agency in choosing the image. So I think, and they had most fun doing that, as the course eval said. So I'm glad. I think that would be my favorite assignment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the post, people can kind of read more about that assignment, like what is this kind of assignment, and then you also include some of the artwork that you mentioned, some of the artwork that they actually chose to write about, and I think we have an image of one of them, but I also linked to some of the other ones that we couldn't get, copyright access to, so people can check that out, and it's a really interesting assignment. I think it's really cool, and how it kind of rolls into our final question, which is thinking about how we can look at these environmental humanities sources, whether it's literature or art, etc., and reading science and ecology into them. And I know that when I am talking to people who aren't, familiar with what we do, they're often surprised. They're like, "Oh, a historian can like talk about science, or you can, talk about science and literature at the same time," which I one of the reasons I really love these fields. Anyways, so I wanted to see if you find there's any challenges to doing this kind of teaching where we're reading science and ecology into environmental humanities, and perhaps also what the advantages are.
Yeah, that's such a smart question, Jessica. I feel like, yeah, I think, yeah, so the um, the essential, like the skeleton of these courses were readings on writing, on the process of writing and rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
So my students learned how to just sort of, like, they were all freshman students, so they learned how to suss out their own process of writing and how to perfect that. So
Mm-hmm.
alongside that, I think the and so many of them will choose to major in the sciences. Some of them will choose to major in some humanities disciplines, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
fingers crossed. And some of them will also go on to study environmental humanities or environmental sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And environmental humanities is a discipline that ties together the sciences and the humanities and the social sciences. So I think the readings that we did in class and the kind of pedagogy that I tried to bring to my course
Mm-hmm.
sort of helped them grasp a little bit of, like, the historical aspect and the scientific aspect, and then the interdisciplinary aspect, little bits of both. It was like a sort of, it was like a, like a tasting board, and I hope my freshman students gained from it. But yes, it was difficult to kind of tell them, I mean, to convey to them that, like, imperialism did affect the environment,
Mm-hmm.
but not kind of scare them, or that processes of plantation, um, extractivist processes, like mining and etc., they're all kind of connected across time and space, and the Anthropocene exists without overwhelming them too much,
Mm-hmm.
too much with this information, and that that creative writers have responded to these processes just as social scientists and historians have as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think the biggest challenge came from the fact that they were all freshmen and they were just kind of in college and they were just kind of trying to get used to the idea that you have to study difficult texts and read them and write about them and also
Mhm.
understand that there's a theme and that's the environment. And yeah, so it's scientific, but it's also creative. So yeah, but yeah, so these were like the experiences of, yeah, us
Mhm.
in class. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me. I also just want to say, NiCHE, especially Jessica, you're always commissioning exactly the most insightful, the sharpest, the most relevant articles in environmental humanities, and I follow the platform with great interest for many years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least like I think 4 years at least, and
Yeah.
it truly is one of the best platforms that give voices to scholars of environmental humanities. Thanks to you and the other commissioning editors who've made it such a fantastic, such a relevant, such a brilliant platform. And I hope you will continue to do this work.
Well, thank you so much for the. I could. I have no plans to stop anytime soon, and
Yay.
next year marks our 20th year of NiCHE. So we're kind of trying to like ramp things up and stuff. So we'll see. But our publishing has been going really well. And yeah, I just want to thank you for writing about this topic too, because I think communicating the cultural aspects of ecology and science, like, and alerting people that they exist, because sometimes people are just like, oh, you can think about like the history of science, and they're just really surprised because we aren't taught about those things unless we seek them out, right? So
Yes.
what you're doing is so valuable, and I really want to thank you for writing about these courses. And I think it helps also too to have these reflections available for people who are planning their own courses, who are going into their first year of teaching, because it's scary.
Yes,
I've been there too. It's very scary.
of course.
um, and yeah, so thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care.
Yes, you too.
Bye.
Bye.